Well, welcome in, friends, to Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. We're so glad you are back with us for this episode. Erica, welcome in. It's great to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have today. On the podcast, we try to focus as much as we can on how we show up as coaches, both in our being and our doing, and really dive into kind of the behind the scenes of what's it like to be a coach day in and day out. For some of you listening in, that may be very part time. For others of you, you really want to grow this into something that is full time. And again, you get to decide what those hours are and how much commitment and time. That's all part of your journey as a coach. But today we want to dive into, it sounds a little bit negative, Eric, but the hidden costs of coaching. And I don't mean it to be negative, but I am a person that loves real conversation and the reality of what is it like. I think as I've been doing this now for over 10 years, I really said in that, where was I at the beginning of coaching, that first 1 to 3 years? What was the messy middle like? Still in the messy middle sometimes because your business and your skills always grow and develop. But what do I wish someone would have told me in reality about being in this profession of listening to others, not as a therapist, but as a coach, as a mentor, as a spiritual formation coach or a spiritual director. But I'm glad you're here to have the conversation with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love just being, like you said, real about what are the parts maybe that you don't see that are kind of that beyond the surface.
Yeah. So we have two or three things we're going to talk about today, and we'll just dive through them in order and both give some of our perspectives and just talk through them. I do want to say before we dive in, though, if you ever have a question, if you're listening in, the easiest way to connect with Erica or I is to go to our website at thereallifeprocess.com, click on the little community tab, and actually join our community. We have over 350 coaches, spiritual directors, listening professionals from both corporate spaces to individual businesses to all kinds of ways that people are using the skill of listening in that community. You can get to Erica and I through that community by joining the community, setting up your password. It's absolutely free. And then clicking on the little message tab and just message either one of us directly, either following up about this podcast episode or any other questions that you might have. It's probably the simplest and easiest way. We're in that community every day. It's where our certified coaches also are. But our free community hub space, just come and join us there. We've had a lot of activity there recently, just people messaging and reaching out. And it's really where I'm focusing most of my attention. Personally, it's not in Facebook or LinkedIn or any of those places. It's actually inside of our own community. So we just invite you there. Well, let's dive in. Very first thing we're going to talk about in the hidden costs of coaching is the emotional and mental energy of coaching. In simplistic terms, a lot of people would say, and my husband has said that to me, like, really? You get paid to talk to people? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. I just did a meme, and I don't know if you saw it or not, Erica, recently on my everyday posts that I do. And it was this idea of like, I want to go back and tell my high school teacher that I get paid to talk now because I do have the story. I'm getting in trouble in high school for talking too much or in a study hall or something. And my mom was a teacher, so that one was funny to me. But I will say it's different. Listening to others is different than just a conversation. So, from your perspective, Erica, just say a little bit more about what is it really like emotionally and mentally to show up maybe several times a day and hold that sacred space for others? Because we come in our faith, we come bringing that, whether we're talking about faith or not, we come bringing that. So it's a sacred space. I know it is for me, and I know it is for you to listen to
Mm.
others.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's different than a conversation. Conversations can happen anytime we bump into others. Sometimes that's a really positive interaction. Sometimes it brings out something in us that we weren't aware of or surprises us that might even bring some reaction. But yet, this, and you just named it, sacred space is a place that we want to come to really intentionally. And so for me, that just means that kind of how I approach the space has to be a little bit more intentional and measured. And so when you're preparing to hold space, you can't be holding tightly onto your own things and have hands ready to receive or ears ready to receive. And so it just means that I have to be in sync with God to lay down and surrender the things that are important to me and ask God to help me to really empty me of myself, not in who I am as a created being or as a person, but really to say, help me to focus toward and hear what my client is saying and speak through me as I'm paying attention to impulse and how I might show up in instinct so that I'm acting even as you would direct. And so, yeah, because we hold space for when people are coming, even though coaching is a very forward moving, helping profession. People are talking about pain. People are talking about things that are confusing or that they're discerning or that they have some real transitions and choices to make. And so it's big things often that they're bringing for us
Mhm.
to be present with them.
And so part of it too is as you develop your coaching skills or your listening skills, being in a listening profession is figuring out what you need before or after sessions. As I've studied coaching, you and I both have over the years and looked at it, I've had wise advice from those before me of like, what do you need to do if you have two sessions to gain back some emotional mental energy? Do you need to allow 15 to 20 minutes between appointments so you can go outside, walk, or walk around your home, or what do you need in your body, in your emotions? Do you need to go get a glass of water? Make sure you're hydrated. Caffeine is not wrong in quantities, measured quantities, I would say. What do you need? Do you need a snack? Do you need the physical, the mental, the emotional to
Mhm.
be able to stay at an emotional and mental energy? You and I both have gone through seasons where we've had traditions where we've lit a candle before our session, or we have a breath prayer that we say, or we have a way of emptying ourselves so that we can be fully present. If your life is like mine, there are times, and because of the virtual work that many times we're doing, whether it's a phone call or a video call, that you have something totally different right before a coaching session, such as a meeting or a team meeting or a training. To be honest, right before we are recording this podcast, Erica just taught for an hour in our network community on coaching skills.
Mm.
So I laughed this morning and said to her, wow, we're going to talk for a couple of hours today, but two totally different contexts. So many times, at least for myself, my days are full. I'm switching a hat and I might have a session that's open for coaching at 2 in the afternoon. And yet I've done 3 to 4 things that morning in different contexts or with clients. And then I'm doing something afterwards. So to be fully present for that hour with that client takes some emotional and mental energy. And I just want to be honest about that. So in our process where we teach a rule of life process for individuals and for our coaches to learn and be certified in so they can use it with their clients, that component number 3 of stewarding time really comes into play around this idea of emotional and mental energy. I have learned for me in this season that 5 sessions of coaching a week is about my capacity because of other work I'm doing in our network community of coaches, for other clients that I'm serving in my local community, for my family's sake, for the hours. I do not want to do evening hours. That to keep my emotional and mental energy for 5 people a week, that's where I sit. But because it's not just what happens in the session, It's what you carry before, it's what you carry after. And we're going to talk about that more as we get into the podcast. But yeah, just knowing that there's a cost to the emotional and mental energy of coaching. There's also deep rewards.
So much of what you're talking about, Teresa, is really about just acknowledging that we have a capacity and
Mhm.
honoring the capacity. And when I look at my day ahead and notice, like, where do I need to be? Because, like you, I can work out of a couple different spaces. And so we have the flexibility as coaches to work from remote locations. Where do I need to be? And it's not just a physical location, it sometimes is what margin, and you mentioned that, do I need prior so that I can show up fully present to whatever the role is that I am stepping into with others as I'm coaching or teaching, facilitating
Yeah.
just within the day.
The switching of hats probably isn't talked about enough. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast episode is because there's sometimes things that are sold to us, and I say sold in quotation marks, of this is a freedom lifestyle and you can do, and that is very true. But there is some hidden cost to, if you're going to be present with others and be fully present, how do you show up? I have coached from my car, not my best coaching. Now, I will say it's quiet there. It's all
Mm.
those things. If I'm on the phone, it might be okay. But again, I'm not fully present. I'm not giving my best emotional and mental. So don't buy totally the bill of goods of like, oh, this is freedom lifestyle. You can do it from anywhere. It's great. Yes, you can, but you need to know what works for you. Can I do it when I'm traveling, when I'm staying at a hotel or an Airbnb? Absolutely. Can I do it from the road while my husband is driving in the car? Possibly. Depends on the client, but that's not my best. And so just really looking at that, how are you wanting, what's your capacity? How do you need to prepare? Who are the clients I'm working with? All of those types of things.
Yeah.
But don't buy the bill of goods that, oh, it's just this thing that doesn't take a lot of effort or mental energy, or you can do from anywhere.
I love what you're saying, Teresa, because even if we can sometimes,
Let's
just even pre-deciding what are the things that are out of my control, because I might be able to say, oh, I can, but is my client able to focus if I'm honest, or
Mhm.
is my internet going to hold out as I'm traveling? There's a lot there that this really is about stewarding the opportunities we have with our clients well and allowing ourselves to really set ourselves up well to show up to be our best self.
Exactly. And so if I've had a long-term relationship with a client and I know I'm going to be traveling and I can say, hey, I'd be more than happy to meet with you during that time. I would rather do it over the phone because my internet might not be good because of where I'm going to be located for the day. I can switch and have that honest conversation and let the client decide if that's going to be a good time for them because maybe they need the session and I'm willing. But with a brand new client or a discovery call or something like that, I don't want that to be my first impression of I'm living from rush, not rest, and I'm trying to fit them in. So all of that is that emotional and mental energy space. You
So
want to
good.
feel the best when you end the call that you gave your full presence. So let's move on to the next point. We could do a whole episode just on that one, but I think the second point is continuing on this idea of time is people often think, again, kind of the misnomer out there is that all you do is show up with people for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour. You listen to them. This might be my husband's perception, to be honest, of like, oh, you listen to people, you talk to them. And hopefully, my sessions aren't all about me talking because that's not what coaching is. The truth is, depending on what you're doing, and there's so many angles we could take with this one too. If you're coaching for an organization, you're an internal coach, which a lot of more companies are doing internal coaching. You may be required to take notes. You may be required to meet with a supervisor over that particular person if you're coaching with a team. You may have post session thing that you need to do, follow ups with the real life process. And our certified coaches that are all independent, but as part of their certification, they receive all these resources that they can use. And so they may bring up in a session, oh, I have an assessment, the needs and values assessment, or I have a worksheet on stewarding time. Would that be helpful for my client to see? So it might be a follow up email. Depending on what your agreement is with your client, there may be things like that you've agreed to. There's the scheduling. I spend time every week very purposely in my calendar looking at what time, what my capacity is, what my margins are. I might even need to reach out to a client and say, can we reschedule? Or they've rescheduled and I need to reach back. So there's marketing, there's scheduling, kind of the admin and the running of the business side of your business, as well as continued learning. If you're going to be in any profession, you want to have continual learning. So, what percentage of learning in your week feels good for you or in your month? Do you have a coach? Are you doing continued training on your coaching skills or your spiritual direction skills? So, just looking at all of those things, those are all part of the time that it's not like, oh, I have 10 clients, I work 10 hours a month, life is great. I don't know that I have an exact percentage of like for each client how much time I should, because it's different depending on who my clients are. But what are your thoughts there on this idea of the time you don't see as a coach?
Yeah, well, I think that the coaching experience begins before you get in the room. And that's what you're
Mhm.
sharing is like, don't minimize the things that happen in prep for you, or even what it takes for you to wrap something well and to honor what you've said you will honor for yourself so that you can show up for the next session. I mean, even scheduling at the end of a session, I want to be present to go right into my calendar to schedule that client's next session that they had already just given me. Because if I don't, something else takes that spot. I had that happen vulnerably just recently again. And it's a longtime client. I had to reach out and say, I'm so sorry. I had that in our notes. I did not put it in the calendar. What flexibility do we have here?
Mhm.
And it was no problem. But I want to be able to for that to be a rhythm, and I have to offer myself the margin. And that's what happened is I hadn't offered the margin. So honor the whole experience, I think
Mhm.
in summary is really what we're talking about here.
So, one of the ways that I have practically kind of managed this, and it's not perfect every time, but I try to have 15 minutes before I get to a session and 15 minutes after a
Yeah.
session. I work with another business that does back to back appointment type scheduling in a medical facility. And so that's built in when you go into the software and schedule, it's built in to make those transitions. And as a business owner, as a coach, so if you're doing 50-minute sessions, you're really going to want to block out almost probably 90 minutes on your calendar. So whatever that is, or if you book 50 minutes with a client, but you know you've got 60 minutes, you might want 15 minutes or 10 minutes before and 15 minutes or 10 minutes after, so that you feel like, as you said, you've wrapped the whole thing up. So again, that's where I've learned what is my capacity within a week's time. Yours might be much greater, but because we have the real life process as a full business with team members that I'm meeting with and with clients that I'm meeting with there, as well as my own private clients and calls that we do and trainings that we do and all those things, I don't have the capacity as just a private coach. So, think of your vision. Your business will shift and change if you decide to grow more streams of revenue. We have podcasts we just recently talked about with that. If you're going to do speaking or training or teaching like you do or other things, you have to look at your capacity of those things and where do they bump up against days. What are the other things that I do? And I don't know what you're doing these days, Erica, but I only have certain days that I coach so that I know within a week's time, Monday through Friday, there are certain days that I will not have coaching, which just is different mindset on those days than, okay, I need to be present for that call at 2 or at 1 or whatever, because those are my highest priority. Someone's paying me for that time. So I don't know. What are you doing nowadays? Do you have availability 4 days a week or just 2 or 3 days a week? Or what have you found for the management of the time?
For me, it's more of time blocks that I have available. So most mornings, I have a time block in the morning and a time block in the afternoon. I may not coach until the afternoon, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have two blocks each day. Normally, I have a Friday morning block. And so it may end up being that there's, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 blocks, between 7 and 9 blocks a week that are available. And depending on length of session, some of our sessions that we do with real life process clients are 45 minutes. My personal clients, 50 minutes, or I might do a 30-minute laser section session with an athlete or something like that. So because there's a variety of kind of what those sessions look like, I just use the bigger blocks.
No. So it can work all kinds of ways to time block. And you just kind of have to find I did it much like Erica's doing 2 years ago. But as I have realized what roles I play, what hats I'm wearing, maybe it's my age. I don't know. I can't switch hats as often, or I get really sped up and I'm not showing up as my best self. So I just really noticed that through last fall. And so the beginning of this year, I kind of switched things up and I'm trying this for a while. Doesn't mean I won't go back. I actually have even I don't even have a scheduler right now available. It is literally done through you're booking your next session at the last session, or you're emailing me and saying, what do you have? And I'm giving you 2 or 3 dates and we're doing it that way. So you'll run into different seasons of how you manage your time. But it is that asking those good questions of, yeah, the hour that you charge though is only a fraction of the time that you're actually showing up for your client. The
Yeah.
hour or half hour or whatever, you heard Erica give 2 or 3 examples, is only a fraction of kind of what you're doing. So build in the other time into your calendar. Well, let's talk about this last one. So far, as we've talking about what the hidden costs are, we've done the emotional and mental energy, we've done the time that you don't see. And then I think this last one is another one that, oh my gosh, I wished I would have done way more coaching around this with my coaches at the beginning. But I actually, being very vulnerable and honest, carried a lot of shame and have had to work through a lot of money story around financial realities. And I was very vulnerable in the beginning of my coaching to spend a lot of money on things that now I look back and I probably did not need. And yet there's something to be said for what is a investment of becoming a coach going to cost you, literally in dollars and cents. And thinking about a couple of places. Number one, what are you investing in yourself in training? And what percentage feels good and right for you? And and just going to be honest and say, there does need to be an investment. One of my biggest frustrations and blessings is that the coaching industry is not a regulated industry. So anyone can literally put out a shingle, as we say, and say, I'm a coach. I'm glad it's not a regulated industry. So that's the blessing. But the frustration can be there are people that are doing coaching that is not coaching. It may be helpful, but it's not what we would call qualified coaching or qualified spiritual direction or those types of things. So please, if you're getting into this industry or in the beginning of building a coaching practice, do your work. And that's going to have some investment, whether it's something like our certification where you're taught in our program how to use our tools and go through coaching skills development and learn a process of bringing that to your clients. It's a great place to begin. And it's not a huge investment. I'm just going to say, and it's our program, but I'm just going to say, and it's going to be so much personal growth for yourself. So look for things that you can invest in, and anything in the coaching industry is going to bring your own personal growth. But if you want to go further, you may want to look at a credential. You may want to look at a certification. You may want to look at some of those things. And there is going to be an investment. So that's one way that you are going to have some financial costs I'll say more about a couple of other things here, Erica, but what are some other things that are just like this is the reality of having a coaching practice from a financial place?
Yeah, the guideline that I'm thinking of is be a learner rather than a knower. And so it just posturing ourselves that way and knowing that the investment that we're making, that cost is tied to us showing up well in curiosity. So it complements who we want to be by being willing to make a financial investment in our learning. And so certainly beyond even that investment, there's practical things like tools and resources that we invest in, perhaps from a subscription. If you're coaching online, you might be using Zoom or Google Meet or another platform that you're familiar with. You might be investing in a scheduler. If you're using electronic, there are free services. And then you may grow to a place where you need something that has multiple layers of complexity or a CRM to really help manage your client information to get your intake forms, or if you're using prep forms, how do you actually organize the things that you just notice and learn about your client throughout that longevity of the relationship so that you can really show up and steward it well in just being organized. And so that does have a cost to it.
Yeah. And the more clients that you have, the more if you want to build an email list, if you want to have a website, I don't want you to go in with the false belief that you can do it all at a free level. You can do some things in the beginning, but even to buy your domain name is a yearly investment to keep that name, or to have a quality website is going to cost you something. So the reality is there is a financial cost and overhead to having any business. You don't have to have a website to have your first 3 to 5 clients. You literally do not. They're probably in your sphere of influence, in your local community. You don't even have to meet on Zoom. Many people, and I think the value is going to be even greater to be in person with people. Most of us don't live so rural, and I'm in a pretty small town that we can't engage in our local community and do some networking and bring some clients in. But eventually, you're probably going to be investing at the low end. And again, I'm guesstimating, don't hold me to this, but at the low end, $200 to $300 a month to run the back end. And at a higher end, it could get up to $500 or $600 a month, depending on what you're needing in support and software and website. Maybe someone technically that you contract a couple of times a year to do some things for you. So I just don't want to lead you down the rabbit hole of there is no financial investment. That may not even include the learning that you want to do, the sharpening of the saw, the skill development that you want to continue. If you go to a credential of any kind, you're going to have ongoing CCEs. We offer those in our network for people so they can get a 2 for 1, right? I get learning while I'm getting CCEs in the ICF world. So that is one benefit that I love that we're able to offer people. So look for those kinds of things where you can get the most for your investment, but just be honest with yourself and maybe with your family if you need to have that financial conversation with a spouse or someone who's going to support your business. There'll be a time commitment and there'll be some financial investment that will probably come sooner than later. When I was first going into doing some coach training, they told me to get a client right away. It happened to be Erica, was my first client, and to charge them something.
Mm.
And there is something to be said, even if I think it was $50 a session for you. I'm not sure. Not charging that now, but that's what I charged then to just get my feet wet, but also have that exchange of goods for services. So when I had some money going out, I felt like I had some money coming in. So again, each of these points that we're talking about on these hidden costs of coaching could be a much longer conversation. These are the types of conversations we literally have each and every week within outside our coaching community, because these kinds of things you have to pre-decide, you have to discern together. It's so much better to do it with people that are in the industry in that way as well.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you're sharing, Teresa, because I think so often we can look at coaching and we'll go, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm doing something else, but I'm going to try this on the side. And we treat it like a hobby. And what you're
Mhm.
talking about is really honoring it as a business. But if we really, truly, God is the CEO of our business and we're partnering with him in that work, how are we going to approach this with some systems and structure? And so the costs that we're talking about today all help to really help us to live into that
Mhm.
mindset to where we start to take some ownership in our business.
Absolutely. And treat it as a business. I have said it for the last few years. I don't love the phrase, well, I'm going to have a side hustle because the hustle sounds like rush. It sounds hard. It sounds like it's not much fun. But to say, I'm going to have a part time business that I'm building, maybe you never want it to be full time. And that is absolutely okay. Maybe you're in a season of life where doing something meaningful in work, 15 to 20 hours a week or 10 to 15 hours a week, would feel phenomenal. One of my mentors, who's no longer with us, Dan Miller, passed away a couple of years ago, used to have this framework for a 20-hour work week of building a business in 20 hours, not the side hustle. Again, that's a false marketing thing of you can build this side hustle, it's going to make you all this money and put you in financial freedom. If that's your goal, I just want to be honest to say coaching is probably not the profession for you, in my opinion, because it builds over time. It is a exchange of time for money. And so there is only so much capacity. There are other ways, other streams of income that you can build in and revenue that aren't as time for money. You can build group programs, all of those things, but it builds over time. So it's not a hustle that's going to magically 6 months later be something great for you. And there's a cost. But when you're called to do this kind of work, when you feel a deep in your soul calling to listen to others and their story, to listen to others as they transform and find their truest selves and grow to be whatever God's created them to be and move past maybe things that have held them back. Again, coaching is not therapy, but it can move someone forward. You and I are both testaments of that in our own stories. And I'm so,
Mm,
so grateful for
mm.
how coaching has transformed my life.
Yeah, I've heard it said it's not therapy, but it can be therapeutic.
There you go. That's the best phrase, right? So we are not therapists. That is not what coaching is. And so if you're called to therapy, go be a therapist. If you're called to coaching, come be a coach. And with that, we would say one of the reasons we do this podcast, very honestly, one of the reasons we do this podcast is to introduce you to coaching and to also help you develop the skills to be in the work with you, but we're in it with you. We're doing the work. We're growing. We're in different seasons, both of us in our coaching and in the building of our skills and development. But one of the reasons we do this podcast is introduce you to ways that you can step into coaching or come and sharpen your saw. And one of the greatest ways we do that is through our accelerator coach certification program. It is a 1 day accelerator training. I'm getting ready to do one tomorrow. It's my favorite day of the month. We have 3 brand new coaches that will be going through our certification tomorrow. And they are people with experience. They're looking for tools, they're looking for resources and a path to help walk with their clients, to discover their role of life, to say, how do I live into my best life? And so I'm super excited. We do that on a regular basis. We're doing one tomorrow, but by the time this podcast out, that'll be gone. Our next one will be May 21st is our next accelerator training. So if you're listening to this in kind of real time, this podcast will be coming out sometime in the middle of March. You will be able to get into that. We can hold your spot. We only do 4 to 5 people in each of these accelerator days. Then you have continued videos to watch and training. You get to be a part of our community of coaches for about 90 days with the option to continue on in that community, which I know all of our coaches that are in there, it is one of the most life-giving spaces for them because they get to be with others that are doing the work from a faith perspective and showing up and making a difference as coaches, spiritual directors, listening professionals. And so, if that interests you at all, Erica, why don't you share with them where they can go, where they can find out that information?
Well, you can go to thereallifeprocess.com/accelerator and learn more about what Teresa's sharing. Part of the journey is also just the joy of getting to be a client on that journey. So you'll experience the richness for yourself and you get to practice coaching as well. So you sit on both seats and it's just a beautiful way of becoming. So many people come and say, "Oh, I wanted to build my business, but I realized this was really for me too." And
Mhm.
both are true.
Both are true. Absolutely, friend. Well, we hope that this will be helpful for you as you look at what really is this idea of coaching with others. Or maybe you've been coaching for a while, you've listened to the podcast, and you're like, wow, I want to take a look at my time. It's kind of gotten a little away from me and the margins and what I'm actually giving to my client and allowing space for. Or I want to look at my finances again and be very honest with, am I spending money in places that I don't need to be? Now there's all these apps that'll help you find those hidden subscriptions that you've signed up for. Take a look at your bank statement or your credit card statement and just look and say, are there things here I don't need? Are there things here I'm not using that I could steward well? And then look at that energy piece for yourself. This is a great podcast to just review these three things and say, am I holding something after I get off calls with clients? Am I holding too much? Am I immediately texting them and reaching back out to them and checking on them when it's their story? And if you've been in this industry for a while and you're like, ah, I needed that today. Or if you're paying attention to what God might be calling you to. So, Erica, thanks for being with me today. It's always a joy to just have a conversation.
Absolutely. Grateful for the journey. And we love just walking with you as you're not only just building a coaching lifestyle, but a life that you can sustain.
For sure. And just remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. There'll be one today if there hasn't been already. You just have to look for them. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode from Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. Talk soon, friends.